This video is over Lesson 39 and 40. Lesson 39, multiplying decimal numbers, and Lesson 40, using 0 as a placeholder and circle graphs. Pause the video to copy the title into your notes. When you're ready, hit play. Moving on in 3, 2, 1. To multiply decimal numbers, follow these two steps. Step 1, multiply the numbers like whole numbers. Ignore the decimal. Step 2, count up all of the decimal places. The product will have that many decimal places. For example, let's multiply 0.28 with 0.037. Step 1 tells me to multiply like whole numbers. So I'm going to ignore everything other than this 28 and this 37 for right now. And I'm going to line up my problem like it was 28 times 37. But it's not really a 28. It's really a 0.28. So I am going to write this in, but when it comes to multiplying, I'm just going to ignore it though. And then I don't really have a 37, I really have a 0.037. So let's add in those extra pieces as well. And now we're ready to multiply. 7 times 8 is 56. Put the 6 down, carry the 5. 7 times 2 is 14, plus 5 is 19. Notice I didn't do anything with this 0, because if this was a whole number, that 0 wouldn't be there. I'm going to completely ignore it. Now I put a 0 down as a placeholder, and I'm going to multiply by my 3 now. So 3 times 8 is 24. Put the 4 down, carry the 2. 3 times 2 is 6, plus 2 is 8. And now I add it up. Again, notice that I'm ignoring this 0, because if this was a whole number, it wouldn't be there. I'm also ignoring these zeros, because if this was a whole number, they wouldn't be there. Keeps the problem a bit simpler. So now we add 6 and 0 is 6. 9 and 4 is 13. Put the 3 down, carry the 1. And 1 plus 1 is 2, plus 8 is 10. Now we've got to move on to step 2. Step 2, I'm going to count up all of the decimal places. So I've got 1, 2 decimal places there, 1, 2, 3 decimal places there. So 2 decimal places plus 3 decimal places means my answer will have 5 decimal places. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 decimal places. So my decimal is going to go right here. The empty space gets filled with a 0, and then of course a 0 is a placeholder for my whole numbers. So my answer is 0.01036. If we follow these two steps, some decimal problems should actually become incredibly easy, even mental math. For example, if we had 0.29 and we multiply that by 0.01, well, we're going to multiply like whole numbers. So this is 29 and that's 1. Well, 29 times 1, that's pretty easy. It's just 29. Now count up how many decimal places. Well, this has 2, and that has 2, so for a grand total of 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4 places. So 0.0029. And let's do one more. 0.6 times 0.5. Well, if those were whole numbers, that'd be 6 times 5, which is 30. With 1 decimal place here and 1 decimal place here, the answer should have 2 decimal places. So my answer is 0.30. However, remember we need to reduce our decimals, so this extra 0 here on the end is not holding something back in a place. So it is unnecessary, so we're going to go ahead and make it invisible. And so there are 2 different ways that you could do that. You could circle only what your answer is, or you can put an equal sign and rewrite it without the 0. Moving on in 3, 2, 1. Circle graphs are a way of representing information. They are useful for seeing how much something is out of the whole. For example, our book uses this circle graph. In this circle graph we can see what pets a group of people have. So there are 16 people who have dogs, 8 people who have cats, 4 birds, 4 fish. So there are several things that we can tell right off the bat. Roughly half the people have dogs. And it looks like about a quarter or a fourth of everyone has cats. And then this last fourth looks like it's split in half, which would make each of these an eighth. Now, in a circle graph, when it comes to halves, our eye is usually pretty able to distinguish a straight line. So it's a safe bet to say that 16 dogs is probably half. However, whether or not this is actually a quarter or just a close to a quarter, that may be a little bit harder to tell, and especially if these are really eighths. So it's better to be safe than sorry. If you were ever asked a question about what fraction of the pets are birds, for example, so let's say birds, well, we would take a look at how many birds there are. So there are 4. And then we'd take a look at how many are there total. Well, 4 and 4 makes 8, plus this 8 is 16, plus this 16 makes 32. And if we reduce our fraction, we get 1/8. So it doesn't just look like 1/8, we know for certain that it really is. So when looking at a circle graph, we can see fractions pretty easily. But sometimes we can also look at a circle graph and say what percent out of the whole is this thing. For example, this is also another circle graph from our book, but this time instead of giving us how many dogs there are, how many cats, birds, fish, they've told us what percent is in favor and what percent opposes. And we can see here that this is 1/3. Even if you don't have it memorized that 33 and 1% is 1/3, we can see it visually. Because if we were to split this larger section in half, you can see this spot here and this spot here would be about the same size as this. So this must be 1/3 and this is 2/3. And this video will end in 3, 2, 1.